Now there's an accuser who has come forward. Her name is Christine Ford, and she has come forward and she suggests that back when Brett Kavanaugh was 17 years old and she was 15 years old at an unspecified party, at an unspecified date, at an unspecified location, he lay on top of her, tried to rip off her bathing suit, covered her mouth with his hand in an attempt to stifle her screams, and then somehow she escaped. And that's the accusation. Her own lawyer said that it's not important for her to provide corroboration for her story. Her lawyer basically said, her name is Deborah Katz. She says basically that this woman has no obligation to provide any evidence that these accusations are even true. She can just throw it out there and we're all supposed to believe it without any further corroboration.
And has your client spoken to any of those other guys or that girl who could help corroborate her story?
She's not.
And why not? Is it time to do that?
That's not her job to do that. If this is going to be investigated, it should be done by investigators.
Okay, well, what exactly is that supposed to mean? The FBI can't investigate. She hasn't given any corroborating details. I do love how Democrats are playing all of this. They say that she is absolutely believable. What makes her absolutely believable? That it's useful. Like Barbara Boxer, who is just an idiot, former senator from the state of California. She was on MSNBC. She was the stupidest woman in the United States Senate. She's no longer there. Now it's Feinstein and Kamala Harris. Feinstein is smart. Kamala Harris is not. Barbara Boxer says, we should believe this woman. Why should we believe this woman? Well, because we should believe this woman. But why, you ask? Well, because we should. Here's Barbara Boxer explaining.
This woman is to be believed. Anna Eshoo is one of the most incredible people I know in this world. She has a heart of gold and she's sharp. She knows after sitting with that woman, you can believe Anna Eshoo and you can believe Dr. Ford. This was attempted rape. And this is a woman who exhibits, Dr. Ford, courage, but the classic signs of post-traumatic stress.
Now, listen, the Republicans know what's going on here, right? Mitch McConnell knows what's going on here. So the Senate Majority Leader, he says, listen, it's obvious what's happening here. Democrats waited until the 11th hour to dump this allegation, specifically in an attempt to scuttle Kavanaugh. This is not about getting to the truth in any real way.
Yet chose to keep secret until the 11th hour. Neither she nor any of her Democratic colleagues chose to raise this allegation during the committee staff's bipartisan background calls with the nominee.
Okay, all of this is true, what he is saying, and it is absurd the lengths to which the left is going on this. Now the Democrats are cynically playing politics. It is obvious that they just want to believe what they want to believe here. The best example that I can spot is from Anna Marie Cox, who was on MSNBC last night. Again, the fact that anyone takes Anna Marie Cox seriously is beyond me, but she was on MSNBC last night on Lawrence O'Donnell's show, and she explains it doesn't matter whether Kavanaugh is guilty or innocent. The only thing that matters is whether in the hearings he's nice to the woman. I legitimately cannot make up what she's about to say. Here's what she says.
A parallel here is that we need to judge Brett Kavanaugh not just on what he may or may not have done, but how he treats a woman's pain. And that is something I'm going to be paying attention to on Monday. Now, I'll give you a spoiler alert. I don't think Brett Kavanaugh takes women's pain very seriously, and I know that because of the decisions he's made as a judge. But I think that to have that unfold on national television live will be quite instructive.
Okay. I don't flip people off on this show, but you have no idea how tempted I am to throw up a double bird at that one. I mean, that is just disgusting. That's disgusting. So if a woman accuses me, like Ben Shapiro, the woman accuses me of rape, and I say she's totally full of crap, this is made up for political purposes, then Anna Marie Cox's question is going to be, do I treat her pain with respect? I'm falsely alleged to have committed rape or attempted rape, and I'm supposed to treat that woman's accusations with her pain with respect? That's how you're going to judge it? And you're going to prejudge how I treat that woman based on the fact that I have ruled in the past in ways you don't like on judicial cases? That statement from Anna Marie Cox is just morally abysmal, morally disreputable, disgusting, repulsive, repugnant. I'm going through the full thesaurus here. I lose capacity for speech at how disgusting it is to suggest that if you're falsely accused of a crime, your activity in feeling the pain of the person falsely accusing you, in your view, is really the main consideration here, not your guilt or innocence. Doesn't matter if the person is lying about you or got it wrong. The only thing that matters is how nice you are about it when you deny it. My God, these people, and she has no shame. Have these people no sense of decency or shame? Just unbelievably absurd. And her lawyers have come back and they said, no, we're not going to do any of this. Hey, President Trump comes forward. He says, listen, it would be wonderful if she showed up so we could ask some serious questions about this.
I'd really want to see her. I really would want to see what she has to say. I think he's an extraordinary man. I think he's a man of great intellect, as I've been telling you, and he has an unblemished record. This is a very tough thing for him and his family, and we want to get it over with. At the same time, we want to give tremendous amounts of time. If she shows up, that would be wonderful. If she doesn't show up, that would be unfortunate.
And of course, that's exactly right. Okay, that's exactly right. What Trump is saying, that forget what you think of Trump. She has to show up so that we actually have some sort of questions that can be asked of this woman. Instead, what we're getting from the left is, how dare you? How dare you? We tell a story, either believe it or don't, but we're not giving you anything. We're not giving you anything. Look, Dianne Feinstein, who started this whole charade by receiving this letter and then not saying anything about it for 6 weeks, waiting till after Kavanaugh's hearing, waiting till after all of her written questions, waiting till after all of her verbal questions to Kavanaugh, and then releasing that notice that she had this letter that was anonymous information from an anonymous individual. Even Dianne Feinstein is now saying, I can't say everything is truthful. Well, if you can't say everything is truthful, then what the hell are we doing this for? If you can't say that you believe the accuser, then what are we doing this for? And on what basis you believe the accuser? And what you think the process should be going forward? And no, it doesn't help to just say, throw it to the FBI. This is really disgusting stuff. Here's Dianne Feinstein saying yesterday, I don't know that everything is truthful. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, I have no say. I'm the lead Democrat, but the Republicans control. So this is all up to the Republican side.
Okay.
And I think it's really too bad that no one called her or called her lawyer. My understanding is she got emails. And this is a woman, and I really believe, who's been profoundly impacted by this. Now, I can't say everything's truthful. I don't know. Right. But I do know that they had to contact her lawyers. And our side isn't putting this together. The Republican side is putting it together.
This is insane. Okay, this is just insane. They didn't call her. They only emailed. What? So she received the emails. You know about it, don't you? People respond by email all the time. I do it on a frequent basis. Email is a form of communication in 2018, it turns out. What in the world? And then there's Ford's lawyer. So Ford's lawyer comes forth and she says, listen, we put out these allegations, but why should we rush to a hearing? There's no rush. Let's be real about what this is, folks. This is a delaying tactic. Democrats are hoping that this whole thing drags all the way through the election. All they have to do is drag this sucker out another 6 weeks. If they can drag it past the election, they're hoping desperately that Democrats clean up in the election. There's about a 1 in 3 chance that they actually win the Senate back. Let's say they win the Senate back, and then they just stifle Kavanaugh's nomination in the same way Republicans stifled Merrick Garland's nomination. They could do that. And that's their great hope here. That's what they're doing. This lady's lawyer comes forth and she says, there's no reason to rush to a hearing. Oh, so there is a reason to rush to bring out the allegation, but there's no reason to rush to a hearing. So here's the statement from Christine Blasey Ford's lawyer, Lisa Banks. Quote, Dr. Ford was reluctantly thrust into the public spotlight only 2 days ago. Let's be clear about why Dr. Ford was thrust into the public spotlight. She sent a letter to the Washington Post, to Representative Anna Eshoo of California, and to Dianne Feinstein. In all 3 of those letters, she said she wanted to keep it confidential. If there was a real basis for the allegations, like a hard evidentiary basis, don't you think the Washington Post would have reported it? They reported the Roy Moore allegations. Don't you think that they would have checked it out, gone and vetted it down to the ground? But they couldn't. And so instead, Dianne Feinstein leaked anonymous allegations out into the public. And then, shock of shocks, it turns out that the lady feels like she needs to come forward because now it's public enough that people are tracking her down. Whose fault is it that this whole thing was released? Dianne Feinstein's, okay? She is currently unable to go home and is receiving ongoing threats to her and her family's safety. Listen, I know what that feels like. It's terrible. It is terrible and obviously evil. Nobody should be threatening anybody else in the United States with violence. That's not a thing. But that doesn't mean they get to hide behind safety threats not to testify about matters that impact the entire fate of the Supreme Court going forward. Her lawyer says fairness and respect for her situation dictate she should have time to deal with this. No, that is not what fairness and respect dictate. That is not what fairness and respect dictate. Fairness and respect dictate that people should be prosecuted for threatening her. They do not dictate that she has to be given a year to deal with the emotional pain of an allegation that actually has impact on the public discourse. She continues to believe that a full nonpartisan investigation of this matter is needed, and she is willing to cooperate with the committee. However, the committee's stated plan to move forward with a hearing that has only 2 witnesses is not a fair or good faith investigation. There are multiple witnesses whose names have appeared publicly and should be included in any proceeding. Okay, so why don't Democrats just say that? Why don't they say, okay, we'll have the hearing, but we're also going to need to hear from Mark Judge and a bunch of other people. They're not doing that. They're just saying no hearing, which is pretty suspicious. So Kirsten Gillibrand, who is just the worst. I mean, Kirsten Gillibrand is just a garbage human being. And this is a person who basically said that Al Franken should be ousted from the Senate over allegations that he was touching women inappropriately and then backtracked on that. She's switched every position she's ever held. So here is Kirsten Gillibrand saying the GOP is trying to bully. So let's get this right. If the GOP doesn't have a hearing, that's bullying. If the GOP does have a hearing, that's bullying. It seems like you might have an unfalsifiable thesis there, Kirsten. Here she is explaining.
They are creating a false choice. They are trying to bully her into testifying on Monday before a full FBI background check is completed. For a nomination for the Supreme Court, for any judicial nomination, there's always an FBI investigation. They do it as part of the background check. This allegation is new. They should have at least that thorough, nonpartisan review of the facts, and then those facts can be presented to the senators so they can have a proper hearing. But unfortunately, they're trying to set up a he said, she said scenario and bully her into either testifying on Monday or not being heard at all.
No, that's what? If you even got back to them and said, okay, you know what, we're going to testify Wednesday. We're going to testify Friday. But instead you're getting back and you're saying we're not testifying at all unless the FBI does exactly what we want. These are the same folks on the left who say the FBI should not be used as a political tool by the administration. Really, these are the same folks on the left who are saying Donald Trump's interference with the FBI is politically inappropriate. Susan Collins, it turns out, is a woman. I know, shocking. But Susan Collins is in fact a woman. And she says, listen, why doesn't Dr. Ford come and testify? She says, I hope Dr. Ford will reconsider and testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Monday. It is my understanding the committee has offered to hold either a public or a private session, whichever would make her more comfortable. And then Susan Collins came out and she said, for saying this, she's received death threats, which prompted Eric Swalwell, who's a Democratic representative, to tweet, is 24, to tweet this out. He tweeted, boo hoo hoo. You're a senator who police will protect. A sexual assault victim can't sleep in her home tonight because of threats. Where are you sleeping? She's on her own while you and your Senate GOP colleagues try to rush her through a hearing. How are the media treating this? They're in the most insane possible fashion. There are now 2 different people who went to school with this accuser who have suggested that she's telling the truth. But then under questioning, it turns out they don't know anything about Brett Kavanaugh. So one of them is named Gary. And here's what she had to say. She was on CNN. She's a former friend and ex-classmate of Kavanaugh's accuser. Here's what she had to say. So she's featured on CNN as a source who would know. Watch how this goes.
You know, one of the things that's been surprising to me as I've gotten involved in this in the last couple of days is how many women of my class have come forward to me in this last few days and said, I had similar experiences in high school, and this hits me very deeply. And it's very
not with Brett Kavanaugh, but with
not
other
with Brett
boys.
Kavanaugh, but with other boys in our community.
What the actual F? What in the world? So this is how this works now. At the OJ trial, you say, you know what? I have had experiences, right? The prosecutor says there are lots of people who've had experiences in which people were murdered, not by OJ, but by other people. And what are you supposed to do with that? Like, yes, lots of women have had bad experiences with men in which they were sexually abused or assaulted. That's awful. What does that have to do with Brett Kavanaugh? Right, let's say that I accuse somebody from Germany of doing something to me. And there's no evidence it happened. But I said, you know what? Back in the day, all of my grandparents' relatives were slaughtered in Europe by your grandparents. All of them. Therefore, you raped me. Like, what? That does not follow in the slightest. But the social justice warrior says, in the name of justice, in the name of rectifying the imbalance between men and women, Brett Kavanaugh must be burned at the stake. He is a man. There's a woman who made an allegation. Burn him. It's not just her. There's another woman who came forward, and she went to high school with Christine Blasey Ford, and she posted a note, this long note, all about how she knew the Kavanaugh allegations were true. Naturally, this drove a lot of media interest. Right? She writes this very, very long note about how all of the allegations are definitely true. And the media jumps on this. They say, oh my God, we finally have confirmation, right? I mean, it's a long note. And here's what she wrote in the note. I signed this letter. It makes me proud to have attended Holton Arms. That's the high school that Christine Blasey Ford went to. The current situation involving Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and Supreme Court Justice nominee Brett Kavanaugh touches a very personal nerve and has unearthed memories, good and bad, that I had buried deep from my time at Holton. I graduated from Holton and knew both Brett and not well and Mark Judge. I remember having a bit of a crush on Mark. He had a keen intelligence and sardonic, biting wit when he wasn't drunk, which was often, as were lots of teenage guys from prep. I asked him to go to my junior or senior prom with me. Can't remember now which one. I just remember how horrible I felt when he stood me up because he got bombed a few hours before the prom dinner. He showed no respect and had no remorse. Apparently in 2018, some things have not changed, unfortunately. First of all, it's not a sex assault allegation. That's him being a jerk allegation. Christine Blasey Ford was a year or so behind me. I did not know her personally, but I remember her. This incident did happen. Okay, this is the part where everybody went, okay, now we're listening. Many of us heard a buzz about it indirectly with few specific details. However, Christine's vivid recollection should be more than enough for us to truly deeply know the accusation is true. We are all in some way from that time, at least me, Christine, and I, applaud her courage and dignity. The drinking, ensconced in the puritanism and hypocrisy of that elite, privileged, mostly white Catholic Washington society, was completely out of control. We were teenagers and did really stupid, abusive, dangerous things. I invite the women who stepped up in support for Kavanaugh in their letter, in addition to writing about what a good person, great athlete, student, family man, and brilliant professional Brett Kavanaugh is, and he may well be all those things, to reflect on the use of the word integrity to describe him, and to really think about who they are supporting and why. In my case, even before Christine came forward, I was and still am completely against his nomination. And then it says, he goes against me no matter how fine a person, an upstanding citizen he may be. So this entire letter is basically, I hate Brett Kavanaugh, didn't want him on the Supreme Court, and I know the allegations are true. So she says she knows the allegations are true. Okay. Except it's bullcrap. How do we know it's bullcrap? Because she went on NPR. She pulled down, first of all, she deleted her post. Then she said, well, I didn't really mean for people to take that all that seriously. And then she went on NPR, and this is clip 22. Here is what she had to say about this.
That it happened or not, I have no idea. I can't say that it did or didn't. In my post, I was, empowered, and I was sure it probably did. I had no idea that I would have to now, go to the specifics and defend it before 50 cable channels and have my face spread all over MSNBC News and Twitter.
I felt empowered, and I didn't feel like I had to defend it. That's pretty much social justice in a nutshell, isn't it? The social justice warriors. I felt empowered so I could speak complete crap directly from my anus, and it wouldn't actually matter whether I was telling the truth. Unbelievable. I could actually substitute my mouth for my bile duct, and everything would be fine because I felt empowered. Screw anyone who believes this way. Anybody who believes that your feeling of empowerment trumps the truth or basic human decency is a vile human being. Is a vile thing to say. It's a vile, nasty, horrible thing to say. And it gets even more vile and more horrible. I mean, it's the worst smear I've ever seen. If they've got no more evidence than this, it's the worst smear I have ever seen in my life. I mean that bar none. That includes the stuff Democrats said about Romney, about him trying to put people back in chains. That includes the crap that Democrats said about John McCain not being able to use a computer because his hands were actually wounded in Vietnam. It includes everything. To take an accusation that has no verifying detail and then say, you know what, we don't need verifying detail because it makes us feel empowered. You go straight to hell, because you will. I mean, this is a hell going kind of thing. I mean, this is a sin of egregious proportions.